Hey there.
I've got more Betnijah questions for you. Uh,
Okay.
so first of all, if this were an all-star year, she's 8th in the lead in scoring, 2nd in the lead in steals. This is a clear all-star campaign, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's 7 games, so I mean, I think in a compressed situation, hopefully she keeps being all-star like. But there's no doubt, and it really goes both ways, both sides of the ball.
Mhm.
Offensively, she's been good, but defensively, she's just a warrior.
And I guess just to that end, that kind of took my next question, which is 7 games is a relatively small sample. When does it feel, or do you know that this is who she is now? Or are we already there?
Should I say free agency when I know if she wants to come back? I think the beauty of what Benijah is doing is that, as someone who came in as somewhat of a replacement player, if nothing else, she's done such a good job of turning herself into a value commodity in free agency this offseason, because I'm pretty sure she's not going to extend under the CBA rules for us. So believe me, I've already looked into it. So, I mean, I think what you're seeing is an evolution for her. And you can see when opportunity kind of meets work ethic and all of that. I mean, she obviously hasn't had this kind of role. She hasn't had this kind of opportunity, and it's special when players get their opportunity and make the most of it. And certainly, that's what she's been doing for us all season.
And is that just a consequence for her, for Hines Allen, of the 140 something roster spots, that this league is just filled with people who could be star level players just but for the opportunity to play minutes?
Yeah, probably. I mean, when you're thrust into a different role, there's a difference between, I'm pretty sure Mike Tebow knew that Hines Allen was a good player. I mean, I'm sure they've seen it in practice. I'm sure they've seen glimpses. But sometimes it's just hard to get on the court when you have Deladon and you have Sanders and you have Misamin. And so, where does she fit in, and how much are you going to let her play through mistakes? I think that's the beauty of opportunity. Not only do you get the minutes, but you get the opportunity to play through mistakes. And, I mean, I will say this about Benijah, I think, I'm starting to nitpick. And that's when you've kind of created a monster, because now I'm watching film and saying, geez, I think she had Alicia Gray's hip here. Why did she cross over? She had a straight line drive to the basket in a spread situation where it's her in the rim or it's ball side help, which you don't get a lot of it in this league. So, for me, I'm starting to nitpick where, the first game of the season, I had just been happy that she made more good decisions than bad decisions. Now I'm thinking, okay, here are the little things. How are we going to correct these little things going forward so she can still be the best version of herself?
Thanks, Nicki.
Danny Thompson, go ahead.
Coach Dane Thompson with the three-point conversion. Now I have a follow-up question for Benijah and a completely different question. So we were talking about the awards and All-Star. Do you think Benijah could be a candidate, if not the most improved player in the league? Is question one.
Mm-hmm.
And question two is, of course, we know with Connecticut, they're led by one of the best scorers in the league, and DeWanna Bonner. How do you prepare for someone who will probably take a good number of shots and also put up a good number of points? How do you defend against that? So it's two different questions.
Yeah, sure. First question, relative, remind me what the first question was. Geez.
So no problem. I know it's two separate questions because the question
And
about being the most improved player. The most improved player.
Okay. I think certainly a leading candidate for it. I think you can probably, Howard mentioned Hines Allen, also a player that has put up, kind of huge numbers relative to what she's done in the past. So I think those are your two most obvious, I think, at this point in terms of most improved. And then as far as DB, I mean, everybody knows she's a quality scorer. I think, though, if you look at Connecticut's wins and losses, when she's had to take a lot of shots, even when she's been efficient, they've struggled because it's meant that the ball doesn't have a ton of energy and it's sticking in her hands and she's being forced to make a lot of plays. Connecticut's always going to be at their best when the ball's bouncing around and it's touching AT's hands on every possession and she's being a facilitator. So you know, I think when you look at their best game of the season, obviously against Dallas, you know, you saw DeWanna have the lowest output she's had of the season, but as a team, you know, they really had good energy, they had good ball movement, and so, you know, I think we just want to contest her. She's a player that, you know, you want her to score over you instead of around you. You know, obviously has deep range, but if you look at her statistically, she's still low 30% from three, where when she touches the paint, she's more of a finisher, or she's so long that she steps through, gets to the rim, and misses, but is so long she gets her offensive rebound. So I think it's those areas where if we're constantly making her make jump shots over us, then I'll be pretty proud of our defense. I think if she's consistently getting by us and around us, that's where we'll get ourselves in trouble.
Doug Feinberg, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. I know it's only 7 games into the season, but it is a short season. You're only as much as you got to go through with roster flux for the first 7 games, per se. You're only 1 game out of the playoff spot right now. Is that the sort of silver lining that as poorly as things have gone so far, you're only 1 game out of making the postseason right now, and you have everyone healthy and can make a run now potentially?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like when this is all over, I should write a book, the dream trip to the Wubble, you know, and everything it entailed, because you kind of can't make up some of the stuff that's happened to us here. At the same time, like I just think that my hope is that if nothing else, we're growing, we're getting better game to game. We're not talking about playoffs right now. We're talking about how do we improve on the last game. And I think playoffs will take care of themselves in that scenario. Like I think if we're still heading in the right direction, and we don't get too frustrated and too down, and keep finding ways to get better. I mean, this is, you know, I said this early in the season that it was going to be very uncomfortable for me to not put as much prep time into you know, our opponent as we do into ourselves. And I think that's been our approach, because when you have the roster changes that we've had, and people coming in and trying to get people in shape on the fly that have been sitting in a hotel room for 3 weeks or a month, or, you know, like we just don't have, like, I mean, you guys aren't watching Courtney Williams from the WNBA finals last year yet. I mean, it's not there yet. That bounce, that step, that, you know, that energy and consistency isn't there yet. And I think we're going to get pieces of it, but I'm still trying to figure out how much of it we're going to get this season. So, you know, kind of balancing that, you know, and even balancing my expectations. So are we getting better? Are we headed in the right direction? And, you know, can I get Kalani to the point that she's playing 8 or 10 minutes a game? You know, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in a week, but in 2 weeks, you know, do we have her at a place where we can start to see why we traded 2 players to get her? I mean, there's a lot of silver linings in here, but I think this team is capable of winning games, you know, so there's no doubt we're going to walk into every game thinking that we can win. And if we win enough of them, then we'll be playing in the postseason.
Look forward to reading that book.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm not sure it'll all be things that the W would want us to hear. Or you to hear.
Edwin Powell, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, Edwin Powell. You kind of mentioned Kalani just briefly. Can you give an update on her status?
Well, if you watch Instagram, my story or the dream story, you'll see that, you know, we were getting some conditioning in together at the end of practice. I mean, Kalani she's got to get in shape. She knows it, you know, but, you know, I'm looking forward to the time when, you know, she just buries people 2 feet from the rim and you know, gives us a lift around the rim. I mean, she's an incredible athlete for her size. She's just, you know, she's got a lot of work to do to get herself ready, you know, to be able to compete with the pace that the games are being played at here. So, you know, when I feel like she's capable of playing a 2-minute stretch and not being so winded that we can get effort at both ends out of her, then I'll be ready to throw her out there for sure, because I think she's going to be super valuable to us. I just don't know how long it's going to take to get us there.
And last question, Howard, go ahead.
Nicki, just to kind of pull it all together, are there any lineup changes, number one? And number two, if and when the time came where you felt like Courtney was ready to be out there on a regular basis, as a starter. Is that sometimes with Benijah? Does Benijah's evolution change the way you think about that? I'm just wondering what your thinking is about that more generally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm not going to change the lineup tonight. You know, it certainly is on the horizon, I would guess. You know, and it would be very, very hard for me to take Benijah out of the starting lineup. So I'll kind of bookend it with that. I just think she's been too good. She's too good at both ends. And I think it would be hard to pull her from the lineup.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Yep.